Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Newton Town Council meeting of April 22nd, convening at 7 p.m. If everyone, yes, everybody can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's all it's for. Three, can you do a roll call, please?
Mr. Dixon?
Here.
Mrs. Diglio? Here. Mr. Flynn?
Here.
Mr. Schlaffer? Mayor LaFois?
Here, and Councilman Schlaffer emailed ahead to be excused. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, notice of this regular meeting was given to the two newspapers of record and posted on the official bulletin board on January 4th, 2019. In each of your packets, you received the minutes from the April 8th regular meeting. Do we have any additional amendments, changes, deletions, corrections? None? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 8, 2019 regular.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Diglio and a second by Deputy Mayor Flynn. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mayor LaFois?
Yes. At this point in the meeting, the Town Council welcomes comments from any member of the public on any topic. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit the opportunity for anyone who wishes to be heard, speakers are asked to take one turn at the microphone and please limit their comments to 5 minutes. The clerk will keep time. If reading from a prepared statement, please provide a copy and email a copy to the clerk's office after making your comments so it may be properly reflected in the minutes. Do we have any public comments at this time?
Good evening, Tracy Paparella, 56 Halsted Street. I've given you all a copy of some aerial photos of Memory Park and the Newton Pool. And I just want to draw your attention to those photos that they are from 1956 and 1963, and they show that the pool was not built on landfill, as was stated at the March 11th council meeting. After that, John McGuigan had asked for the record to be corrected, and Deputy Mayor, you and I spoke and said that it was not built on a landfill. So I'm just asking that the record be officially corrected. The photos show the footprint of land surrounding the Newton Pool, and there's a patch of lawn that divides the baseball and football fields from a patch of trees. And that patch is where the pool is situated now, as you can see in the 1963 photo after the pool was built. I spoke with Wayne McCabe, our county and town historian, and he confirms that there's no evidence of landfill ever being at the pool or at the site of the pool. There had been 2 trash dumps in the town years ago. One small dump was in the area of the parking lot of the Division of Youth and Family Services, the old Rockaway Sales Building, directly across from where DPW is on Moran Street. And then there was a larger town dump off of South Park Drive in what is now the parking lot. So I hope that you can confirm that. I also have a couple of questions. I'm hoping that, Mr. Russo, you have some updates about the engineering studies. I understand that you get weekly emails about that. And I'd like to know when the studies began and when they're expected to be finished, just so that we have some kind of timeline. I also met with Congressman Gottheimer last week when he was in town for a town hall, and he was surprised and concerned that our town pool is closed for the summer. He asked if the town has any agreement with another swim facility or plans to transport our youngsters there. So I was hoping maybe you had considered that, so we can get our children swimming this summer. Thank you.
Hello, Maureen Snellen, 30 Plainfield Avenue, Newton. Happy to say that my road sign finally has been replaced. I'm happy about that. I see here in the minutes that my road is due to be repaved, which there's been many complaints about it being repaved. because our road was really in bad shape. At the end of last summer, the road department did patch the road, and it's actually very nice. They did an excellent job. And I don't know how long that'll last. I'm imagining we'll get a good 5 years out of it, so I don't know if it's necessary to repave the road this coming summer. I don't know if that's what this is about, whether that's the plans. But I kind of think that $150,000 might be nice to put into the pool to get that up and running. I would think the neighbors would agree with me on that. I see that the fees include sidewalks, and I was wondering what side of the road those are supposed to go in, whether it's both sides of the road or one side or the other. I'd be interested to know that. And lastly, somebody had brought to my attention, I didn't see it here, but somebody brought to my attention that the Parkside Apartments over here were going to get a refund for their water bill. They had complained that they didn't get their water bill on time, and I've been a resident for over 30 years, and I paid my water bill 1 day late after the due date had been changed from the end of the month to the 25th, and they would not waive my late fee. So I had called the town manager and complained about that. I feel, you know when your water bill's due, and no matter what that fee is, that you should pay that penalty. Again, I had to pay the late fee, and I feel they should as well. So I don't think a refund is warranted in that case. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that public portion to the meeting. We'll move on to council and manager reports. So a couple updates since the last meeting. On April 11th, Kimberly and Terry and Cherie and I, along with Tom and his family, attended the award ceremony at Seton Hall, Partner with the Pirates, where Tom and the town were recognized for the work that was done with the business school on their marketing project. So, Tom, congratulations. It was a great event and a great, quite frankly, a couple hundred people in the room who got to learn a lot about the town of Newton. And I spoke with many of the deans and students and some folks at Seton Hall who were really excited to learn more about the county seat. So that was a great night for Newton. On the next night, April 12th, Councilwoman Diglio and I attended the Easter egg dine event at Newton High School. About 54 families, I think, I'm looking at Sherry, put on by the Recreation Committee. Michelle and the team did a great job. Everything from decorating bags to coloring Easter eggs, pictures with the Easter Bunny,
Baskets.
cards, baskets, all kinds of, and cookies, decorating cookies. So that was a fun night. And the next day, Councilman Dixon and I attended the Easter egg hunt Saturday morning up on the field, the turf field. We were watching the rain and the weather all night, but finally stopped at, I think, 8 a.m. just because they were trying to set up on the field to decide whether they were going to be in the gym or on the field. But it ended up being a very nice morning, and the kids hurried through. That's, I think, our fastest event that the rec department does, because cleanup is really fast with all the little ones, and the lacrosse team was able to get on the field on time and get on with their festivities. So thanks to the recreation department, staff and volunteers that have that put on those events. All the planning, all the details were quite evident. I can't remember how many eggs Michelle said that she baked and boiled, but 54 families, 6 eggs each, that's a few hundred eggs. It's a lot. But it was a great weekend. A few days later, Congressman Gottheimer was at Newton High School. Councilman Dixon and I attended, along with members of the school board, and we were able to have a little tour of the robotics lab up at the high school, talk to a bunch of the students there, along with their teachers, talk to them about the progress that they've made the last couple of years. Congressman Gottheimer was asking questions about the infrastructure as it relates to broadband and Wi-Fi and how that impacts the students, working not only on the robotics projects, but schoolwork in general. So it was a good opportunity just to have the congressman look at the robotics team. As I said to the team while we were there, it's definitely a wonderful program at the high school. That's such an asset that has grown and matured over just a short amount of time over the last few years. Have brought lots of recognition to the program. They've gotten lots of awards, and as I told the students, they've taken the small town of Newton outside of Sussex County, and had the opportunity to have lots of other schools learn about what's going on up here. So the students that are involved with that are very, very proud of their projects, as they should be. They have 6 short weeks to put together a full machine that's able to do all of the things that are assigned out for that project a year in terms of competing. Many of those students are working 6 or 7 days a week, every night after school, Saturdays in the labs, and then oftentimes at home too. So they are very proud and should continue to be proud. It's also wonderful that they are so proud about the relationship that they have formed with many corporations in and around the county, including Thor Labs, certainly the town of Newton, but Picatinny, engineering firms, lots of companies that they've partnered with, Mirror Plastics out of Frieden, a lot of others that have really come to support the team, provide donations, and support. So it looks like the machine that they've got for this season is going to do well. On the 17th, the Master Plan Reexamination Subcommittee met, and so we've gone through a first draft of the Master Plan Reexamination, and we'll continue to kind of work through that project, and we'll bring updates as they come forward. And then that night, we had the monthly planning board meeting. Deputy Mayor Flynn and I attended, which was the conclusion and final testimony for the Thor Labs expansion. So we're proud to report that that project is moving forward and has received preliminary and final site plan approval. So that's what's been going on the last 2 weeks. Deputy Mayor Flynn, anything to add?
Just to touch on the Thor Labs approval, the building's about 150,000 square feet, and the retrofitting of the ILIF, Camp ILIF building, to incorporate it as a machine tool shop, I believe. There's a lot of parking, but to soften the site up, there's a very robust landscape plan. So, although it might be light industrial slash office, it's going to have a nice green appeal to it with the placement of landscape trees, so it's not at all abrasive to the neighborhood, because it's quite close to some residential houses. So, that being said, I was pleased with the landscape plan. I mean, those landscape amenities are very expensive for developers, and I'm glad that they're willing to take a step forward and make the site really nice. And we're excited about the prospect of several hundred new jobs in the downtown, and basically a little bit of a different traffic circulation plan in town as well. So if you haven't had a chance to check the site out, keep your eyes peeled. That's all I got.
Councilwoman Diglio?
Okay. On April 15th, I had the honor of presenting a proclamation to Eileen Clara Miller, who celebrated her 105th birthday at Bristol Glen. Her real date of birth is actually April 19th, and she was thrilled to learn that she and I shared the same birthday. We had quite the conversation over the difference in years and what she had experienced during those years. Then on April 18th, I attended, along with Kimberly Williams, the Community College Day at Sussex County Community College, and it was a pleasure to hear from the many speakers concerning the importance of the college to our community. We later toured the McGuire campus and learned of the programs that are presently operating there and those that are planned for the future. That's what I have to say.
It's amazing how many over 100-year-old residents we have up at Bristol Glen. I think we have 3 104s, a 105. Okay, yeah. I talked to somebody who was 95 who said she was a youngin'. That was there. Pretty cool. Councilman Dixon.
All right. I'm just going to touch on what you said about the Easter egg hunt on the 13th. Just thank you to the Recreation Committee for all their hard work in making that event possible. The children love it every year. Gottheimer's visit. I always love to go up to the STEM lab and see what the robotics team is up to. The stuff they're doing is fantastic. It just amazes me every time. So I can't say enough good about that. And it's good to see the congressman was able to get up there and see that and present them with the Congressional Certificate of Recognition, too. And then lastly, Board of Ed meetings tomorrow night. It's going to be at Miriam Avenue School. The tour is at 6, and then the meeting to follow at 7.
All right, Mr. Russo.
Sure. As far as some of the public comment, the contracts took effect when the resolutions were passed by the council, so for Suburban and SCSI. And once the resolutions are passed by the governing body and purchase orders are issued, then work will commence. We're estimating at some point this summer. We'll have the reports back and we'll schedule the engineers to come before the council to discuss their findings. No plans for any aquatic activities. Michelle is focusing on non-aquatic activities, things to do over the summer down at the park for children and families. Appreciate the feedback on the road sign. Plainfield Avenue, 2/3 of that is grant funded, so it's not like that money would be transferred to the pool. And the sidewalks, that's just catch-all language. I don't think there are plans currently for any sidewalks. That's just the general language that goes into the bond ordinance to cover any appurtenances or anything that might come up during the course of the construction. Note for the record, the Miller proclamation, right, that Sandy just mentioned, and the second one, the Arbor Day celebration, right, May 4th, those should be noted for the record. Don't forget, May 4th, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, 8:30 a.m. to noon. We will meet at Memory Park. Rather than Town Hall, we're just going to meet right at Memory Park at the Rain Garden area. Breakfast, assignments, and then pizza for lunch afterwards. You should contact Deb Danielson to sign up. And then bulk waste will be May 11th, so we've contracted again with Blue Diamond. That's May 11th. Permits required, purchase them at Town Hall. Cat Walker, upstairs, second floor. $30 permit fee, offsets the cost of the service.
Up to 500 pounds?
Right.
Yeah.
So we take care of that. And then May 4th, kind of backtracking that 1 week, is also the paper shredding event that we do at the recycling center. So May 4th and 11th, 2 days, 3 events, as the flyer said, so it's pretty cool.
Let's hope for good weather.
Yeah, and then I did speak to our friends down at DCA. I'll be setting up a conference call on the boarding house issue. So Mayor, I'll run that past your schedule and see if I can grab 2 council people to sit in on that conference call with our friends in Trenton.
Okay, regarding the updates of the legislation, the legislative updates?
Yeah, I mean, this is for the administrative end to see if they can address the issue administratively rather than legislatively.
Right.
But very, very good, it was a good conversation with the gentleman from DCA, so that's all I have right now.
And we saw your memo today about the
Armory.
continued work
Yeah.
updates on the Armory property.
Yeah, I did a lot of work last week.
Yeah.
So, got a nice rundown.
Yeah, good to see that moving forward. Okay, any other council manager reports at this time? All right, we'll move on to ordinances. We have an introduction of ordinance 2019-3 tonight. It's a bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the town of Newton in the county of Sussex, New Jersey, appropriating $425,000, therefore, including a $98,192 grant received from the New Jersey Department of Transportation and authorizing the issuance of $403,750 bonds or notes of the town to finance part of the cost thereof. Details are included with the backup information. Do I have someone to introduce the ordinance?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2019-3.
I'll second.
I have an introduction by Councilwoman Diglio and a second by Councilman Dixon. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mayor LaFois?
Yes, we have no old business. We will move forward with the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the town council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Tom, can you do an overview of the resolutions, please?
Yeah, 114 is the award for contract for Dempsey Uniform. We have reappointments for 2 members to the Housing Authority. We have the agreement on Brookside Realty regarding the reduction in penalty, which was discussed with the council previously. 117 authorizes the PBA and SOA 4-year contracts. 118 is the insurance broker of record for employee benefits. Keith Mitchell is here in support of that, so I want to recognize Keith. Reappointment of Dr. Craddock to Shade Tree, Alexandra Questelate to Newton Parking Authority, credits to water sewer accounts. We have concur with the recommendation for 132 Spring Street from the Utility Advisory Board with bills and vouchers. And then there's 2 applications, Arts and Heritage and VFW Auxiliary.
Mr. Mitchell, thank you for being here tonight and for continued good work on behalf of the town of Newton. We appreciate it. Any questions or additional information needed on the resolutions or the applications? Okay,
No.
do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion to move on the consent agenda from Deputy Mayor Flynn and a second by Councilwoman Diglio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio?
Yes, but I have to recuse from check number 41486.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mayor LaFois?
Yes. All right. So up next, we have a discussion this evening and a presentation from our Code Enforcement Department. So if you guys want to come on up, have a seat, introduce yourselves.
Good evening, Mrs. Mayor,
Good evening.
Hello.
Council, Clerk,
Bernie?
Mr. Russo, Mrs. Leo, and the audience. My name is Bernie Harrison. I'm the Code Enforcement Director, and this is my Administrative Assistant, Shri Kailani. Jeffrey Shifter, he's our COC Inspector, but he couldn't make it tonight. But the 3 of us comprise the Code Enforcement Office. And we're here tonight to just give you a brief overview of what we do in our office on a daily basis.
Thank you for being here. I know this is a topic that we're not only we are interested in, but many people in the public are interested and comment on throughout the year. So thank you for coming and preparing a public discussion on what you do.
It's our pleasure. I'm just going to read along on the copy that I have here, because I can't read that on my glasses. I'm not as young as I used to be. The Code Enforcement Office responds to citizens' complaints received by email, letter, phone call, phone message, or walk-in person at the Code Enforcement Office at Town Hall. The complainants can leave their name or choose to remain anonymous. We have embraced, since I've been here 2 years, a proactive approach where I usually go out at least once every 2 weeks and hit every street in town with a visual ride-by. And I broke the town into 5 code enforcement districts, which the next slide shows. So with the amount of properties on each district, I usually go through 1 or 2 every day, every so often. So in a month, I would say every street gets looked at by a ride-by, in addition to people coming in and emails, complaints.
We get anonymous email complaints, and people will come in or call Tom, leave a message.
A lot of the complaints come through the website for the town. We get it through the town manager's office. That's a summary of the figures for 2018, which is the last year we have figures for. 519 violations, 483 abatements, 49 summonses, 199 COCs, and 132 OPRs. What we did in the past year, we installed, it's called Mitchell Humphreys, that's the name of the company. It's a property maintenance manager. It's software installed on our computers. It's helped us immensely. What we do is log in the cases and the time limits for the comply by dates, and every morning it'll print out a summary, a worksheet of properties that need to be inspected. And I go and inspect them, and we give either a second notice or a summons or advance to the next stage. It's helped out a lot. It saved a lot of paper, it saved a lot of ink. We don't print everything out, we just leave it in the computer until we need it for either court or summonses, so it does save a lot of ink and a lot of paper. And it's pretty user-friendly. I'm not very computer literate.
It helps us keep track of what's in summonses, what's in first notice, second notice, and what needs an inspection.
But it's easy for me to even use, is all I'm saying. Conjunction with the clerk's office, we also created a vacant properties list in 2017. So we keep that up to date, and when I go out for inspections, if I notice a house appears to be empty, we add that to the list. and then the clerk's office sends the notices for vacant property registration.
Could you describe what they have to do again, just for the edification purposes? The registration of vacant and abandoned properties?
Well, the clerk's office probably answer that better than I would. Really, I just tell them what I think, but they have to register who owns the property, and then based on if the property is being worked on or if it's being actively sold, they don't have to pay any kind of fee, they just have to register. Am I correct?
Correct.
Within 6 months of being vacant, right?
Right.
A majority of the vacant properties that we have are bank-owned, so there's typically a fee on that. But if it does, as Bernie had said, if it's being actively marketed or is under renovation, then there is no fee, they just have to register.
I'd imagine that they wouldn't be very forthcoming to be like, I own a vacant property and I've done nothing to it, right?
Correct. And this is why Bernie goes out and notifies us, and then we send out a letter.
Yeah, we've had people complain that their property is not vacant. And,
It looks vacant.
It looks vacant, and the times that we go by, there's no sign, but they can appeal it. We also met with all the business owners. We created a business owner contact list. One of the major problems that we do have is the deed, what we go by and what the judge goes by is for us to officially send out notices is what's on the tax record. And a lot of times that's not accurate, and a lot of times we spin our wheels a lot by sending notices to those addresses and those people, and they come back. So we try to update that as possible and get a best record of who we can send the information to. But a lot of times it could take 8 hours just to figure out who actually owns the property and who we can send that to.
Because it's been in recent transition, whether it's in the middle of bankruptcy
Yes.
proceedings or the rest of it,
Yeah,
right?
and there's no requirement, I don't know, Ursula might be able to know legal requirement, but I don't know if there's a requirement that the new owner has to change the deed within a certain period of time. And some flippers actually, they buy the property and they flip it and don't bother changing the name, and they leave it in the old owner, and that's what we're sending notice. But that's really not the person who's responsible for the property, so it wastes our time a lot, but that's the only thing we have.
We can call a bank and then the next day somebody else took it and they're not compliant with giving the information of who's the new owner, so.
We got some new signs downstairs to make it a little bit easier to find. It's one of our accomplishments, offices, because we are in a central location downstairs on the bottom floor, so we kind of direct people to where they're going. Because when we first got there, everybody would stop at our office and ask where to go. So we put the signage up there, and we reorganized the files. Like I said, we computerized everything. So all the old files are archived, and everything now is on a computer. It makes it a lot easier to find things. You just punch in the computer the address. You can access by address, block and lot. There's a lot of different ways you can access it. It's a lot easier for us.
Certificate of compliance.
Oh, yeah, we streamlined the certificate of compliance process and revised the fees, so it's a little cheaper. We increased the initial cost.
The
for
rush order
The rush order
fee.
for 2 days, and then we decreased the,
More notice.
10 or 11 days, which most people will request COCs for, and that went from 75 to 50. And then the 2 days went from, I think, 150 to 175. And then anything after, Shree handles it's not really handled. So.
We're getting a whole lot less complaints. Everybody's
Right.
smiling when they walk away after scheduling an appointment. And they rather not do the 1 to 2 days at 175, and then they work with us and give us 3 to 10 business days for $75. And we used to get a lot more negativity when it was 150 and they wanted 1 to 3 business days. So the inspector's not always available right away, so it gives us.
You schedule that with the construction department?
No, Jeff Schiffner is the inspector, Jeffrey Schiffner, and we work with him. He goes out and does the inspections.
So what we basically do is take the information.
For COCs?
Yes.
Certificate of compliance, which is smoke detector, carbon monoxide, and fire extinguisher.
Okay. The continuing, do we have a continuing? Like,
Well, it's required-
during the sale of a house, if it hasn't gone vacant, then you guys have to come in,
It's required on a sale, a resale, or re-rental. So,
or re-rental.
right. Anytime it changes hands, for any reason. And we basically just take the application and the funds, and then we print out the COC, and then Jeff comes in and does the inspection.
Okay.
And then we file that COC into their file, their paper file.
Jeff is the fire inspector?
Well, he's actually the COC inspector, but it's a fire inspection. The
Okay.
technical title is fire inspector for COCs. We did take delivery of the Durango, which is much more comfortable than the old pickup this year. And
That was a major improvement.
thank the council for that. But it's more, everybody uses it. It's kind of a community vehicle, and it's a lot more comfortable. And it's Wi-Fi and everything's nice. I like it. Heat works. Let me see, the goals for 2019. Like I mentioned before, we're attempting to determine the ownership of the vacant properties and the properties that don't answer the summonses. That's kind of a difficult thing for us to do, but we're finding out if we take a little extra time in the beginning to find out who actually owns the property, it's a lot more efficient for us to send the notices to those people than sending it to somebody. Then the letter comes back undeliverable, and then we have to find out. So we're making sure that we're sending the first attempt without more postage and more ink and paper. We have it's an ongoing problem of sanitation. It's dumpsters usually in town because a lot of businesses have dumpsters and people, they just look for the closest dumpster and they dump their garbage there. So we have that problem. I mean, working with the owners of the dumpsters to try to put locks on the dumpsters or put fences around them. Any way possible we can get them to abate those problems. And it's been working, especially Spring Street's been working pretty well. They have assigned supers to go out there periodically and put, because sometimes people would put mattress and things like that next to the empty dumpster. And the owners were thinking that the hauling company would flip the dumpster in there and then get out and put all the garbage in there where they don't do. So we did have a pretty major problem when we first started, but it's getting a lot better and the actual property owners are addressing it.
The garbage company's supposed to put lids on the dumpsters too.
Well,
So if the
most
lids
of
are
them have
broken-
lids, but they don't have them locked because sometimes.
Well, not locked, but
Yeah.
they're supposed to have lids on there when they're
Yeah,
not
they're
there.
supposed to.
So what you're mitigating is people that are putting trash in those dumpsters that aren't supposed to be putting trash in the
Well-
dumpsters, and then trash outside of the dumpsters that
Yeah,
is not
mostly
being
trash
collected.
outside the dumpster, right.
People put it in front and they think it's gonna get picked
So
up.
the
Right.
owner is not even aware who's doing it or why, so we've worked with them and they've put cameras, some of them put camera signs. It's become a major improvement in the past 2 years.
Well, the other issue that trash outside of a dumpster creates is an issue with rodents or other animals and that type of thing too.
And a
so.
lot of residents that move into Newton that may rent or own aren't aware that the town doesn't, they have to provide their own garbage pickup. So we've been working with residents when they come in for COCs, and we give them kind of like a welcome verbally and let them know, that they do have to provide their own garbage pickup. And it saves the headache of people leaving trash for a few days because they don't know when it's going to be picked up. Landlords weren't in notifying their residents, so we're working on that.
They have a problem with illegal dumping. We just refer them to the police department. That's a crime. That's a police issue. Where people would put their garbage in the dumpster. It's not theirs. So we always had that problem, but it seems to be getting a lot better now since we brought it to their attention. And they're actually getting people over there to check on it. We're in the process of developing a code enforcement brochure. What we try to do is in the winter months, when it's a little bit slower, we try to go around and notice properties that need things like painting or siding and things like that, that they can do in the warmer months, but we try to get the notices out within the first 3 months of the year, so it gives people time to save and let them know that we usually make those comply by dates the end of April or May. So they have time to plan on getting things done.
So Bernie, this was a question I was going to ask you just for the public's information. And maybe this is a good time, but just wanted to step back and maybe tell the public really what the purpose of code enforcement is, and then what the process is.
Okay.
I don't know if you were going to cover that later on, so if I'm getting ahead, let me know too. But
Well, I don't know if we covered that here, but the purpose is to keep blight down and keep property values up and keep the appearance of the neighborhoods aesthetically pleasing. That's basically what we do. We don't do construction or anything like that. It's just basically curb appeal. And then once we get
based on a set of guidelines that's been established.
Yeah.
it's
Right.
called the International Property Maintenance Code. The
Okay.
council, I believe it was 2007.
We adopted it.
Adopted it, right. So it's a whole book of ordinances that we go by. And then when we get a complaint, whether it's email or person coming in or when I drive by, we evaluate it and then we hold it up against these ordinances and we find out, yes, that's, in our opinion, a violation. And what we'll do is send out a first notice, and based on the amount of work, whether it's painting or roofing, naturally that's a little bit longer, comply by date rather than just mowing the lawn. We give them time, and then on the computer, like I mentioned before, we'll go and inspect when that comply by date comes up, and then we'll evaluate at that time whether it was abated, which will close the case, and if it's not abated, we'll go to the next step, which is a second notice.
And as long as property owners are responsive to you and having a conversation with your office about what the remediation timeline or schedule is, based on either weather or resources or whatever, you guys are friendly to work with
We're
and
open to
accommodating.
communication, and we're
Okay.
actually invited. There are some instances that the issue has to be resolved immediately.
Sure,
If it's
safety,
causing
well-being.
an emergency issue. But for the most part, we're open to communication and, we give extensions generously when we can. If the issue doesn't allow, then we have to abide by the ordinance and he has to determine 3-day limit or 1-week limit or 2-week limit, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
We adjusted the property maintenance code, and it's on the town's website. We created standard operating procedures for the code enforcement office with job descriptions, and we evaluate all our systems on an ongoing basis. So if something's not working, we change it.
We also have photos in our presentation that will help the public to understand more of what we do. They will be able to see before and after pictures of some cases that Bernie has resolved and abated. Some of these did have to go to summonses, some did not. If you scroll,
That second paragraph is basically
Yeah.
what we said. We
Yeah.
work with people. We grant extensions. That's the before and after
so
pictures.
here you have a before and after of a home that was purchased by a flipper. And as you can see, it was pretty bad in the first photo. And after working with them, because they did not abide by the timeframes, finally it did come to resolve.
Oh, they took that 26 Church Street building down.
Yeah, that, we work in conjunction with a lot of the other departments. Sometimes with property maintenance, there's an overlap. Like, for example, that structure right there is not very aesthetically pleasing, so technically it's a property maintenance violation. But more importantly, it's a unfit structure. So construction official who has a little more leeway than we do, he has a little more authority. He stepped in when I told him about it, and he got them to remove it relatively quickly. I don't know the dates you can see there, but it was within a couple weeks.
And this was kind of hidden. This wasn't something we could see by one of our district inspections. However, a concerned resident brought it to our attention.
Sometimes there's zoning issues that we come across in property maintenance, and we forward it to the zoning or DPW.
Here, this was protective treatment before and after. Another protective treatment. Yep, here we have, you could tell the before and after, peeling paint on the side of the home as well. It looks like railroad ties as the foundation, not the foundation, what do you call that one?
Retaining wall.
Retaining wall. They were falling and loose and becoming a safety issue, and the owner decided to go ahead and, I believe he cemented it or repaired it very well. This was another home purchased by a flipper in the town, and the before picture, you don't really see what's going on too much. I don't know if you could zoom in either, but we had several complaints on this property because the construction company had a lot of their construction items around it, and they were concerned for safety. And the after, they cleaned it all up, there was no construction issue there. Can you talk about this one?
This is weeds, and the town ordinance is 10 inches. Can't have grass or weeds higher than 10 inches.
I was just gonna bring that
Yeah.
building up.
And that's gonna become a hot topic the next few months with spring and summer. Some people aren't aware that they have to keep it trimmed and maintained. It cannot be higher than 10 inches.
10 inches is
Pretty high.
10 inches is like, cats hiding in the grass.
It's pretty high, but that's,
We should lower it.
well, we can.
Well,
Yeah,
a
that's
couple
what
good
it's
weekends
at.
of rain, though, and that could be pretty quick.
Yeah. And, well, it's gonna be a hot topic. You'll see. This was also another bank-owned property, and they look a lot worse in person, but there was, the stairs were deteriorating, and they had broken windows as well, and they repaired it all after a few months of us doing research to find out who exactly was responsible for the property. And they have since then sold this home, and another family is living in it. Wanna talk?
That's sanitation, that's garbage. All that is garbage right there.
So we get a lot of complaints about this in the town of Newton. Lots of trash on property. Be it somebody moved out, got evicted, or just people storing things on the side. And it's a call that we either get a complaint of or something we see a lot of. Usually we make a phone call to the owner, the resident, or we send a notice, and they abate it pretty quickly.
See, a lot of times the owner, the property owner is not aware that this is happening at one of his houses. So sometimes we call them and they say, well, I didn't even know. And they get it straightened out pretty quick because they don't know what their tenants are doing. So that's part of what we do, let them know that there's something going on in their house like that.
This one was a long time ago, but there isn't too much of this going on in the town, and we're prideful of that. This was a home that was bank-owned, and they boarded up the windows, and when we came in, we got them to unboard those windows pretty quickly. This is another common thing you see, the moss or mold or algae on a home or roof of a home, and the ordinance states that it should not be there. So in this case, this homeowner took care of it and repainted that area with protective treatment. But normally a good washing and scrubbing would be all it would require.
And that's the whole gist of that paragraph, is just that it's an ongoing process and we continue to serve the community by going out and sending out notices and trying to keep the neighborhood's appearance positive.
And I guess if there was one major
And that's me
thing-
going out on a,
Bernard. But we just encourage everyone to communicate. If you get a letter, a notice, it's a first notice, it does say notice of violation on it. Some people think it's a summons right away, and it's not. It's give us a call if you'd like. Some things we discuss, but if some things are pretty obvious, there's no need to discuss it. You have the letter, and it says what's going on and how to abate it, and it has a timeline.
and the last picture was the football team. I like to always give them props when I can. Kids deserve it.
Any questions from the council for code enforcement? Dan?
Yeah, a couple. So, okay, you answered one of the questions in there, the grass, 10 inches. At the intersection of Shady Lane and High Street, Shady Lane is the street that I live on, and that's been a bank-owned building there for years across from the McCabe's. I mean, I feel like they should just, like, the grass is gonna get 20 inches tall before somebody comes and cuts it. I cut it like 3 times last year.
Is this on the right corner, 123 High Street?
North.
It's on the south.
West corner.
Yes. Yeah. It's the
The White House?
White House. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's bank-owned.
that's a frequent flyer. It's been bank-owned
Yeah.
for years. They never cut the grass. I don't know if it's another neighbor, then I go down there it just gets cut occasionally. Maybe they send somebody. But I feel like when somebody's like a frequent flyer like that, I mean, it should just be, maybe you already do this, but maybe, I don't know the circumstances surrounding that property, but it just looks like a complete mess coming into the street.
Can we tell them what happened to the property, or we had Oprah? 'Cause we've had summonses out for that property, it's been bank-owned.
Yeah.
And the other day, there was a landscaping company there, there's a property maintenance company that's taking care of it now. So
Oh.
that dresser that was in the front porch that was abandoned, that's taken away. There was a garbage can or garbage bag in the front porch, they took that away, and they mowed the lawn. So they're keeping up minimal maintenance, you know, we'd like them to paint, but they've been summoned for that, and there've been 2 summonses so far. And the bank, I believe, has paid one of the summons. So the problem that we have is we only have a certain amount of authority. Once we get to the summons stage, we summons, and then
Goes to the court.
it's in the court's hands at that point, and if no one responds to the summons, we can't summons them again. I guess it's called double
This is
jeopardy.
an outstanding issue, all right?
So we have to wait for them to either somebody come or sell the property. So that's been a problem,
Yeah.
but it's not a unique problem in the town.
I know it's not. I know it's definitely not. I did notice it got painted like last year. And that segues into my next comment, is the porch paint. Obviously, you know, porch paint doesn't last very long. I just did mine at the end of last summer with all the rain, and it looks like it needs it again with the stain. So I mean, it's but it goes a long way, especially the downtown buildings with the old wooden porches.
Right.
Again, just a general comment. That's really what it's noticeable to me, and I'm sure others. The house directly across from Liberty Street on High Street has a tree laying in the driveway, like
It's
an
also
ornamental red maple,
That's 85, 87.
It's vacant. all right.
3-foot
Yeah.
flyer.
That's been summoned. There's 4 summons outstanding on that right now. It's
It's a
in foreclosure. It was a.
vacant.
Should I just go down there and remove it myself?
Well, I don't know if I suggest that for anybody, but
I might.
it was a woman owned it. She died, and her kids aren't taking care of it. So I think it's in foreclosure, actually. But that's one of those frequent flyers, too.
And then the biggest issue, I feel like,
Mr.
is
Porter's not here.
Mr. Porter is not here, but I'll raise the issue on his behalf, is the snow. And I know it is not all your department, or it is mostly police department,
It's not our apartment at all,
but
really.
I think that there is a consistent list of properties, especially on the high traffic areas, that do not remove the snow on the sidewalks. And it should almost be expected that there should be like an abbreviated list. Like, let's not just think they're gonna do it again, you know, at the next snowstorm. It should be like, as soon as it snows, it'd be like, did they do it? Did they make the passage safe in front of their house? Probably not. So they probably need a letter immediately. So that's the police department.
The police have the quicker enforcement, so we've had a lot of discussions about that, but they're the most effective in an immediate response. They have the authority. That code enforcement does not, because they have to provide notice, summons, and it's a longer process.
I know it's not the highest thing on their priority list, so that's why I think we should make, call it the blacklist. I mean, you know, once you get on the blacklist, you're going to be under higher scrutiny for evaluation. Just because, I mean, if it takes 3 days to clear the snow, I mean, it's 3 days too much.
And to piggyback on that, we are a walking district, and there's areas that are high traffic with students, so those areas would be served to be reviewed pretty soon after it snows to make sure that they're clear and safe for the children to walk on. And I mean, the police, they have a list of responsibilities, so if there's a way maybe we could, like you're saying, a list or some way to share the responsibilities, just to make sure, especially those areas, those repeat offenders along those areas are taken care of.
If you have to be reminded more than 3 times in a winter by warning to shovel it, you should get onto a list where you just get a violation immediately. Or maybe the DPW shovels their driveway and we charge them for it.
Any other, Councilwoman Diglio, any questions?
No.
Anything else?
I was glad when I was reviewing it to see your goals and that the brochure and the SOPs. I know that I remember prior council meetings, residents would come in and that's something that they were asking for. So I applaud you guys in actually addressing that and trying to improve that. So
Yeah, you have a hard job, but I'm sure you have a lot of angry people on the phone, and I applaud you guys for doing your job, and
Thank you.
it is extremely important to the town. It is right up there with law enforcement. And if you have a dilapidated neighborhood, it's just going to perpetuate crime from the top down. I mean, you're a retired police officer, you know that. Where we are now with property maintenance compared to where we were 10 years ago, it's like, it is night and day. There was the property maintenance 10 years ago was the construction official that drove through here like once every 2 weeks. And there wasn't much to it, so now there's an entire department, and it needs to be that way, because it's, people's property values depend on the neighborhood looking good and being safe, so and your job's never ending. It's not, everything could be perfect on like next week, and the week after it just fall back apart again.
It's always ongoing.
Yeah.
Is ongoing. Any questions for us? Anything that we can do to support what you're doing? Anything that you foresee coming kind of down the line in terms of trends that we need to take a look at in terms of the code enforcement ordinances?
I mean, just that snow ordinance, maybe if we want to look at the way we work it out. But other than that,
Part of the problem with an ordinance like that needs immediate attention is we're not always here. We only work
Yeah.
28 hours a week.
It's a resource allocation
So if
issue.
we leave on a Friday and it snows on Saturday, we won't be back sometimes until Monday morning. And
Yeah.
that's after the 12 hours that stops snowing. So that's one of the reasons why it's defaulted to the police department, because they're always here.
Right.
They have somebody, and what they usually do is put a door tag on the door and tell the person, they have a couple hours to do it, and then DPW will do it if it's that egregious and slippery, and then they'll have to charge them for whatever their maintenance fee would be. That's the process.
Tom we like charging money for services. It increases that revenue.
And Chief Richards has weighed in on this. I mean, we can probably have a further expanded conversation, what that looks like, but it's been an ongoing conversation, and Mr. Porter's probably been the biggest proponent, and, does bring valid points to the conversation, because he knows which corners, he's been able to identify some repeat offenders, so we know it's been a topic of conversation, for sure.
So it's difficult for us, even when we have to, every other violation, I have to see it before I can notice it, and I have to also see it to summons it. So if I don't see it, by the time I come back on Monday, it's all melted. It's not efficient to have an office that's not here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be enforcing something that's that important.
Yeah.
That's when the problem goes away. Nobody complains about it. It's when it
Right.
freezes and then snows again, it freezes and then perpetuates. If that happens, then yeah, the violation's done.
Anything else?
just for the public to know that when we get a complaint in, or if we see a violation, or if they receive a notice and they say, well, did you check out the house next door? Just for everyone to have patience, because we do work on it. We are very, fair with everything in the department. But everything is a process. They can call in within a complaint on a Friday at 2, we leave at 12:30. Then we come in Monday, he has to go and look at it, because he can't notice it unless he sees it. A lot of times they take my photo. We can't take your photo, we need our own photos. So, and they might say you didn't send a notice because they didn't see the grass cut, but they might not know that we don't know who the owner is. We're trying to track the owner, or they ignored the first notice, they ignored the second notice. Now it's a matter of the court. So that grass is still high until the judge tells them what they need to do. So it may look like some of the properties are not being, inspected, but they are.
And the policies and procedures exist so that the process is equitable
Right.
for all property owners, so.
It's not a department where you get immediate results, usually.
Right. And sometimes we do, and we're grateful to the residents and citizens who do that. We do have a pretty positive impact lately.
And that balances both sides of the equation too, right? So for the homeowner that, is trying to get estimates or trying to save for the work to be done, or is trying to fix the problem, they get some relief from having conversations with all of you as well.
Right.
We've been only in court twice. Most of the complaints that we have are people saying they don't agree that it's a violation. Not too many people have said that you didn't give me enough time or enough chance to abate it. You know, that's almost never. We've given them enough time, they just don't agree it's a violation, so.
So you've only been in court twice in what amount of time?
In 2 years,
In 2 years.
and we won both cases. So it's not a case that it's not a violation, but that people don't think it's a violation. It's not a question that they weren't given enough time.
And again, the guidelines that are in place are all based on the International Property
Right.
Code.
Maintenance code.
There are
Maintenance
some
code.
codes, some town codes that we rely on, there's 3 or 4 that augment the International Property Maintenance Code, but by and large, it's all International Property Maintenance Code.
Oh, I almost forgot one important thing. We talked about this a couple of years ago. When people store materials in the glass storefronts on Spring Street, unoccupied retail space. This is like I know we've had this conversation before, Tom. You probably might be able to add something to it. Do we have enforcement over that? Because it was, it was really just, at one point, it was like occupying Spring Street,
Wow.
storage in the stores.
And Bernie can address, we've had
We,
complaints.
we have a sanitation ordinance, which is kind of broad. A lot of that goes to taste, you know what I mean? Like the owner could say, look, I'm storing something there. We don't have anything, some of it could be zoning too, based on what it's zoned for. Sometimes that overlap. But if we get enough complaints that people say that's a very ugly situation inside the store, we could summons them for sanitation. We haven't gotten that. A lot of the vacant stores put paper up, like that brown paper.
Yeah.
Or there's nothing in it, but we haven't gotten any complaints.
Well, for example, the building next to Chrissy O's, to the left
Yeah,
of it,
you
in between
use
the
it as
Sussex.
storage.
It's used as a temporary election office, and now it's just stacked full of boxes, like right in the front. Used to be a beautiful art gallery. I think it was a salon at one point in time, and now they just store boxes right in the window. It's one of the, in one of the nicer areas on the street. So, I mean,
We can inspect it and look at it and see if we can, charge them. Ursula knows more than I. Sometimes you don't know if the ordinance is gonna pass muster until we actually get in court. So I don't know if, sanitation would, that's kind of a broad thing.
maybe we don't have to take them to court or anything. Maybe it's
Well,
just a matter of a
sometimes,
letter.
once we start the notification process, it doesn't, I can't stop it unless
Yeah.
it either gets abated or goes to court. So I don't generally start one unless I'm 100% confident there's a violation. I don't know, the officer before me would write letters and just to prod people to change, but there wouldn't be a violation or it would be a serious violation. But really, I don't send a notice out in the very beginning to start the process unless I'm confident it's 100% violation.
Would you be able to look into that for me?
Yeah, sure.
We'll also, if we have a phone number for the building or the owner, if we can work with other departments to obtain an owner's phone number, we will give a verbal courtesy call from our director, Bernard. And he calls and he'll say, I didn't even make it a formal first notice. Can you abate that? And 90% of the time, we get compliance, just with the verbal
Yeah.
courtesy call.
We have door tags too in our office, and we try to use them as much as we can. Some people don't like me going up to their porch and putting it on the door. I tried the mailbox one time, but that was a no-no. It was yelled at, I thought. Because it's interfering with
Yeah.
Yeah,
their
you
mail.
can't put
So I
anything in a
didn't realize.
mailbox unless you're
So I don't do
a
that.
mail person.
I don't do that anymore. I don't work for the post office. So, I try to be as unintrusive to the people as possible. Like, I sometimes don't even like sending letters, but when we go by the deeds don't have phone numbers. And if we don't have a case file for them for a prior contact, we don't have phone numbers. And sometimes people get upset and they complain that it's such a minor violation, why'd you waste all this time and energy, paper, but that's the only way we can get contact with them, because we don't have phone numbers. Until they call us the first time, then we get it and put it in the computer, then we can call them. So we can call them and tell them, look, it's not appealing to certain people.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, so I'm just going to ask you all to sit tight because we have one more public portion in case there are some questions.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, the meeting is reopened to the public. Anyone who would like to make a statement or ask a question, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Melissa Costello, 16 Halsted Street. The first thing I wanted to mention was with the snow, I live on Halsted Street, and my kids obviously walk to Halsted School, and it is never clear. I mean, I'm out there, my husband either does it the night before at 2 o'clock in the morning when he gets home from work, or it's done before the kids are walking to school. But Halsted Street, all you gotta do is drive down Halsted Street, and the driveways are not, or the sidewalks are not clear. And the second thing is, I did a walk around, I walk from my, around the block quite often, and I noticed one day, I said, let me write down all this empty stores on Spring Street. You guys are worried about curb appeal and how nice things look, and, this person's got long grass, and this person doesn't have, has whatever in their yard. You walk down Spring Street, I walked from the theater into the liquor store, there's 56 storefronts, 28 of them are empty, exactly half. That's disgusting, and you guys don't talk about it, you guys just blow it off. I was so embarrassed that Godtimer was in our town, because I thought to myself, I pray to God he did not drive on Spring Street, because that is an embarrassment.
Dr. Mekaj, 9 Madison Street. I would like to start first with a thank you for what the Code Enforcement Department is trying to do for their presentation. I did notice something that I thought maybe a little some kind of worries when he tried to bring the photos on the picture, on the presentation. We did see the number of the house. I don't know, but if maybe the owners, if they were here, may consider that a kind of violating of the privacy. That is what I just constated, I saw here. And the other one, it is, I would say, because I did hear that they do receive a lot of maybe calls or complaints or whatever they receive about different houses not complying with the code enforcement. I would say that maybe it would be better if the code officers, they do the homework prior, because sometimes maybe some false information. And it's just, I would like to bring that to their attention so they would not be a subject to any violation for the future. And the person who has been violated for the privacy may sue the town, and in the end can end up to spending the taxpayers' money. But I do appreciate that a lot, that this shows they are trying to work. It's just a little more attention to do the homework and to see what's going on, because there are malicious sometimes information out there. And just I'm thinking for this community, and I like to see things even better so they can continue the good job. Just a little attention on that. Thank you.
Anyone else? One more?
Hi, Jenna Janan, 36 Pine Street. I just had a question with the Thorough Labs. I'm very happy that they're going to be bringing more jobs to town and everything. My only question is, I noted the traffic circulation will be changing. In the morning, with all those people trying to get to their jobs, getting to Halsted's already, we sit in traffic for 15, 20 minutes. I have a kid in every school. I'm just curious if that traffic circulation change is going to help improve everything or make it worse. That's my only question.
Anyone else? So Bernie and Sharik, can you just repeat, as a matter of clarity, about what you do when you receive a complaint and before you issue a violation? You were talking about how you have to verify the complaint. Can you just reiterate that process?
Well, what happens when you receive initial complaint, I go out and take a digital photograph that's timestamped of the violation that's alleged. And then we evaluate it. When I come back, I show Sheree, we both collaborate and say, okay, does this look like, for example, say the paint's peeling, we have the protective treatment, and we both will agree this is protective treatment, this is a violation. The computer will, we put all the information in the computer, it generates a first notice, and then we'll adjust whatever time period we think that the property owner will need to abate it. And then we'll send out that letter. We'll go back, the computer will spit out a worksheet, say it's 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, it'll put out a worksheet, and I'll go out and re-inspect. And then if it's not abated, it progresses to second notice. And then we'll put a time period on that. Generally, that's a little bit less than the first time period. And then at the end of that comply by date, I'll go out again for the last inspection. And if it's not abated, then it moves to summons. And then write them a summons and send 2 copies. The second notice, I have to backtrack a little bit, we send a photo. We don't send a photo for the first notice because it's a waste of paper and ink, because if somebody agrees and they abate it, it saves us a lot of paper and ink. So the second time, it's obvious that they may be confused or they are just ignoring it, we send a certified copy and a regular copy. And then the summons gets sent regular and certified. That's the requirement of the legal department. So then they'll get a court date sent to them from the court, and then they'll go through that process, which is first appearance, where they plead guilty or not guilty, and then if there's a conference, and then a trial if they answer the summons. Some people just don't show up.
So even before a complaint becomes a formal complaint, you physically are inspecting the alleged complaint?
Yes, I
And
have
he takes
to. I
photos
take
whether
photos.
there is an issue or not.
Right.
That photo is then put in a file, and it states no violation found, case closed. Now, if he finds a violation and we both agree on it, and if he's not sure, we'll look at the picture, we'll match it against the ordinances or the town codes. If there is a violation, that's when the process starts.
Like sometimes people say the grass is very long, I'll go there and look at it, and it's like 6 inches. And it is long, like you say,
But
10
it's-
inches is long, but it's not something I can notice.
It's not
or-
10 inches.
It's not 10 inches, so we would write that in the file. And there are some people, as hard as it might be to believe, that when they got summoned or they got noticed, they go driving around the rest of the town and say, well, look at those people. And they'll call me up the next day and say, you know, you summoned me or you noticed me for my paint. How about 32 Main Street? And they do kind of use our office as a way to get back at their neighbors too. So that's why we always go and verify before.
And take our own photos.
Take our own pictures. And as far as the public goes, we do everything from public property. We don't invade anybody's privacy. So everything's done from public property. And we can't take anybody else's photos either, because it has to, the first thing the judge will ask me is, did you take that photo? And it's your photo, so I can't take anybody else's photo.
If someone invites you to their property to inspect another's, you can't, even though you've been invited to?
That's really not a legal issue, that's more a policy issue.
Okay.
They found in the past it's a little bit complex. You know, they've actually gone to somebody's property and cited that person, and that person got very upset. And there's a lot of, you know, we have to go down to the basement and go up this window over here and go, hang out this window. I've had people, you know, tell me, we got to do this. It's very intrusive, and it's not really illegal. It's just that, and then they'd have to be subpoenaed anyway. Most of the time, I'm pretty sure Ursula, a lot of times they'd be subpoenaed to come back and say this is where the complaint originated. So it really, what we do is allow them to sign the complaint on their own, and they just cut me out as a middleman. And they would, if they took a photo, they would use the photo. It's a lot more efficient, and it's a lot more for the taxpayers. I don't get involved, so my time is not taken up, you know, trying to fight their battle. I'm fighting the public's battle and the town's battle from public property. So I'm not in their case, and it doesn't stop them legally for any kind of right for them to sign a complaint. It just takes me out of the middleman. And they would take their picture and sign their complaint, and they would be the one to go to court. It's a lot more efficient that way.
Okay. Any other questions?
Liability too, another thing too. If I get hurt on their property,
Yeah.
it's a problem. So we try to, you know, I'm not saying that their violation is not genuine, because sometimes it is, but it's just a lot easier for them to take care of it if they feel they need to.
So we're going to move on to council and manager comments. And Tom, in this portion, because we've been talking about property maintenance, can we just expand on the Neighbors Helping Neighbors event that's coming up on May 4th? If a group wants to come out, number one, and participate to help clean up some of the areas, what is some of the work that's done on that day? And then if someone is a senior or disabled or something like that and they want to be on the list, how can we make that happen? And what are the types of projects that are done?
Sure. So when I created the event years ago, a lot of towns have a strict Clean Communities event where they take the grant funding and they'll go out and do generic, cleanup. When I created the event, when I came from Randolph, I combined two different elements. So you have the straight Clean Communities component, but then we added the Neighbors Helping Neighbors component because, like Dan said back then, code enforcement, property maintenance was really in its infancy. It wasn't really taken very seriously by the staff or the previous manager and previous councils. So I knew this was an area that needed support. So we created the code enforcement department, but that didn't necessarily give residents the tools to comply with the regulations that we had put in place. So it's kind of the carrot and the stick. So the Neighbors Helping Neighbors became an opportunity for seniors or disabled individuals or veterans to reach out to the town and say, I would love to comply with certain things you're looking for me to do, but physically I'm not able to, or I don't have the tools to do so, or a family member used to assist and they're no longer around to help me. Can you help me? And so over the years, we've had a nice response where we've done brush removal, we've done painting, we've done, garbage and refuse and lawn mowing, and, just all kinds of things that, deviate somewhat from the traditional Clean Communities program module, but really bring value to the customers and the people in the town that need the help. So if people need assistance in any of those regards, they could reach out to Debbie, manager's office or DPW, get their name on a list. We have, scouting groups to participate. Council's always great. Staff, other people in town, people from other towns have come, business people, church groups. I mean, it's like an all, Board of Ed, like the all hands on deck type thing where, for people that are really handy, there's, certain things that they can do, and then there's other things that are just refuse removal. And everything in between. So yeah, we're happy to help. Bernie's done a great job with compliance, and Cherie and Jeff. Kind of a softer approach than we've had in the past with property maintenance. And everybody has a different approach. And I think Bernie has brought his skill set as a former police sergeant in Parsippany. So he understands people. He understands what they're dealing with day to day. And sometimes you just need to ask and do it politely to get compliance rather than having the heavy hammer. So that's why compliance numbers are very high now because of his approach. But yeah, Neighbors Helping Neighbors is a great opportunity for people to take advantage of the free labor for 4 hours on a Saturday. And if they have any violations with property maintenance or just things in general that they can't get to, things that they need disposed from their garage. I mean, painting, we've done all kinds of things to help people, the church groups, the Stags, right? The Stags, the football team, and there's other groups that have participated. And you can see the enjoyment they get out of it because it's not just garbage in a parking lot, which is important. But when you can help people at their homes and in their properties, you just get a different level of satisfaction that you can't get otherwise.
Yep. And you may mention this too, but the same day we have the bulk waste curbside collection, and that's something that's new.
May 11th, that's the week after.
May 11th.
Yeah, we do the paper shredding the same day.
Right, paper shredding.
That was a big success last year.
But it was, so again, just to expand on that really quick, so for $30, someone can come to Town Hall and get a permit, and they can put curbside the following items.
Yeah, it's really all the white goods and all the heavy goods. I forget the pound.
It's 500, I think it's 500.
What I ate yesterday at my Easter dinner, but
couches,
all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and there's a whole list that we have in case they have any questions. But it really, really helps people out. And once again, that would have no other means of disposing these things at Skooma or other places.
Right.
That Blue Diamond, it's an insured, reputable vendor that comes and takes care of it. And it's something that Dan had wanted us to do years ago. Right, we started this year, and it was successful. And some people complained about the fee, but the fee is to offset the work that's being done. It's not a revenue generator for the town. It's offsetting the contract and thousands of pounds of stuff that are getting pulled out of people's,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the opportunity, the manpower or pickup truck to take some of those items to SCUMA, which then they also charge you for, right? Just think if you had to rent a truck from Home Depot, a pickup truck, it's $19.95, $19.95 an hour, whatever the case may be. But it's an opportunity to get rid of some of that bulk waste that, you might want to be getting rid of out of your home, so.
Take advantage.
Yeah. Okay, good. I don't
Mr. Mayor,
have,
can I add something too? I just thought of something. It's kind of important. I didn't mention, it didn't come out up in our presentation, but if the property owners are getting noticed and they feel that it's not just and it's just our judgment, we have a 5-citizen Board of Property Maintenance Appeals. They have to pay $100, I think the fee is, am I correct, Tom?
Yeah.
And then they can get these 5 fellow homeowners in town to hold like a mini court. They present their evidence, their photos, I present mine, and they can judge whether it's a violation before it goes further to the.
Has that happened?
It's happened once when I was here, and before I was here,
Yeah,
it happened
at least one time.
Yeah.
That board that, they came together, or?
Yeah.
Bob
It's
Wood.
called the Construction Board of Appeals?
Property maintenance.
Well, it's
Property
really
maintenance.
Property
It's
maintenance.
a construction board of appeals at the county for Joe Pito type issues. This is strictly property maintenance. But yeah, we've had at least one.
No, it didn't go.
Second one that didn't go through right at that time.
And they also have a CDR, it used to be called CDRC in the court, I don't know what it's called now, conflict resolution, and that's run through the court, and it's kind of like they have their own people there, so they'll also do that. So there's a couple avenues that people can, if they don't agree with my judgment, or Sheree, because we collaborate, they can appeal that. And then, of course, once they get to the court, the judge rules, and they can also appeal that. And so it's our judgment is not always final.
Yeah, or if they have a neighbor-to-neighbor dispute and try to use us, then we advise them to go to the community neighbor dispute resolve.
okay.
I just wanted to address Mrs. Janung's comment about the traffic. While I'm not a traffic engineer on the Thor Labs site specifically, the light is going to be adjusted at Woodside and Sparta Avenue to accommodate the traffic. There'll be a new light there, so there'll be a second means of, that'll be the main entrance and egress to the property. Then there's the back off of Lower Spring Street. So there's multiple ways to access the site. You can access it from the east, you can access it from the north through Diller Avenue, Trinity, and then of course from the south on Woodside, which would be the highest, probably the highest
Plus they
traffic.
have staggered work schedules to try to adjust.
Staggered work schedules, adjusted light, and I know Halstead's bad, but I don't think people are going to be going in that quadrant to get
Yeah,
to.
'cause once they hit that light, they'll be going
get to Thor
into the
Labs.
property itself and circulating within the property.
So I just wanted to address that.
Deputy Mayor Flynn, any other additional comments?
No, I'm done.
Councilwoman Diglio?
Done.
Councilman Dixon?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch gears from property maintenance here for a second. Something that I wanted to bring to the council prior to me sitting up here last year, but never really got the chance to, just because of circumstance going on. I figured I'd bring it up tonight since May is right around the corner and it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health is a serious issue that affects all walks of life, and I, in my career, have seen it firsthand. Issues like depression, schizophrenia, PTSD, drug abuse, all can have lasting effects not only on the patients but the families and friends. According to Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, 1 in 5 Americans have experienced some sort of mental illness. So one of the biggest things for these people, individuals want to seek treatment, but they also have to overcome stigmas, stereotyping, and discrimination. This is where I believe we can make a difference. The Cody Fund for Mental Health and Awareness has a campaign seeking municipalities out throughout the state to declare themselves stigma-free. By doing so, they hope to promote public awareness, create conversations, and work towards overcoming these stigmas, stereotypes, and discrimination, and removing barriers to recovery. So, I've been in contact with them prior for this, and if we elected to pass a resolution to become a stigma-free town, they would provide custom metal road signs at no cost to the town. some of the other municipalities, Montclair, Denville, Madison, Pequannock, Morristown, among others, have all. Sparta is one. It's a different organization, but they are one as well. They're the only one that I know of in Sussex County. There might be another, but so being the county seat and being that there's so many services available to people, I feel like this could just be a positive thing and really help people out. So just throwing it out there. I have a letter from them, and I have a sample resolution, so we could look over that and see if that's something we want to think about.
Interesting. On May 3rd, I'm actually speaking on a panel about nonprofit collaborations, and one of the other panelists is the Mental Health Association, the executive director of the Mental Health Association, so we do a lot of work with them. So if there's at least 3 that agree, I'm going to ask you to work with Mr. Russo on what the Cody Fund has provided to you in terms of some verbiage and the signs and what that might all mean and where they attach them on existing signs, et cetera, but I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
There you go.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that and doing the research.
No problem.
Mr. Russo, anything else?
Yeah, and I appreciate, I've dealt with depression and issues and have family members that have dealt with it, so, mental health is a big issue, and I appreciate you bringing it to everyone's attention, because it's kind of that thing that nobody talks about, and it affects every family and a lot of people, and, we have to remove that stigma. Just Ms. Costello's comments about the vacancies, I think, if you're a resident or a visitor or a business owner, an elected official, an appointed official, employee, I think we're all concerned when we see the vacancies on Spring Street. However, you can look at the glass half full or half empty, and the mayor would know this, and deputy mayor, there are numerous people that are purchasing these properties left and right on Spring Street and renovating them. The renovations take time, but when you see the new Style Shop, when you see the work that was done at the theater, when you see Feels Like Home, when you see the black and gold Tama van in every parking spot on Spring Street and Trinity Street, as they bought the 2 properties diagonal from us, they're looking at another half a dozen properties. They bought the Beehive, et cetera, and John Questelate was 26 apartments at the Boula's building with a new restaurant, looking possibly him or others looking at the Pub and Grill building and the electronics building at 200 Spring Street. I have a list. So I think we share the frustration, but the reality is the dominoes are falling in the right direction, and there's at least four or five developers, John and Tama, there's a gentleman from my neck of the woods, and there's another developer who's in the mix. So like I said, there's like 4 or 5 that are competing against each other to buy these properties, because they're converting these apartments from $500 a month to $1,500 to $2,000 a month on Spring Street.
One building's getting $1,800 a month for 2 bedrooms.
Right. So the chain, like they used to say, change is coming. Changes come, and the tsunami of these properties, and even Bernie and Cherie see it as they do their property maintenance work. It's like, or Kimberly in community development, or the conversations that Scott has about the abatement program. Like, everything is finally hitting. It's taken 11 years for it to hit, but and it doesn't guarantee that all the vacancies will be gone, because I've been in Maplewood and South Orange, and they have
Westfield
vacancies,
and
and Denville
Morristown.
and Red Bank and Westfield and Morristown and Morris Plains and Parsippany, and they all have vacancies too. So the problem is that we have such a concentrated area that when you drive through Spring Street and you see all the vacancies, right, the optics versus if they were spread out over 10 or 15 blocks. But it takes time, and it takes property owners that understand, the maintenance code. It takes Scott having the conversations about assessments and the abatement program, conversations with me about taxes and the direction of the town, because they always ask about that. Infrastructure.
Sewer hookups, yep.
Right, infrastructure, water and sewer, the fact that we have capacity. It takes everybody doing their role, including residents, as they go to other communities, find those restaurants or coffee shops that want to move to Newton. It's not just the manager's job or the council's, it's everybody's job to fill the vacancies, right? So, what's interesting about Newton is that sometimes it's easier to do a 160,000 square foot building on Lower Spring Street than it is to fill 800 square feet on Spring Street. So, we have to celebrate the wins of the Thor Labs and the Boulas, and what the McGuire's property will look like in 5 years, and what Atlantic Health is doing with their property. But we all have to work collaboratively to fill those vacancies. And some of them are just absentee landlords that
I was just going to say that.
will ignore
That don't
every
want to
letter
fill
I've
them.
sent, every phone call I've attempted to get vacancies or to buy property for parking, or whatever, property maintenance calls that get ignored. There's a handful of property owners that just do not want to engage in either selling their property, fixing their property.
Or filling it.
Or filling their
We've
property.
had people that have tried to rent
Because they
in
just want the
storefronts.
write-off for the
Right.
commercial space, and they'll have the rentals up above, and they'll leave the commercial vacant.
Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of all those things, but if we all keep working in the same direction, I think you'll see over time those vacancy numbers decrease, and there's always going to be turnover of businesses coming in and businesses leaving. It's the economy, it's capitalism, until somebody says otherwise in Washington. Socialism's not coming to Newton. We're a capitalistic society, and we want people to open businesses, and we want entrepreneurs, and I think Newton's best days are ahead based on these conversations. And like I said, Mayor, you can jump in because you've had these same conversations with these people too.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say to that is that there's a process, right? So if you look at even just the 6 redevelopment projects that are really active, it's not just someone that comes in and buys a property and the next month they can start, building or expanding or changing, right? So there's a process. And Councilman Dixon, you can attest to this, but a few of the things that Congressman Gottheimer actually said to us last week was, of all the municipalities, Newton is one in the county that actually has infrastructure, and why it is so attractive to developers and small mom and pops who want to open businesses and big industry like Thor Labs. It's because we have water and sewer. We actually have a list of vacancies. We're pro-business friendly. We have conversations about the greater good. It's the county seat. I mean, the congressman recognized that Newton has its challenges as the county seat, but the very first thing I think he said to the two of us when we walked in is, "You guys are doing a great job in Newton, and I love coming to the town." And and he spoke to the students and echoed what we were saying, that as these kids are going off to college and looking at STEM, he's hopeful that they're going to come back and live in Newton and in the surrounding towns that feed into the school because of the good things that are going on here. So, yes, you're absolutely right. I think for people that maybe have not walked Spring Street, as Ms. Costello has, walk Spring Street and look at the Style Shop building. We call it the Style Shop, right, because it was like that for 50 years. But Mr. Questlate's building, the businesses that are in there, the fact that he's at full capacity. The building on the corner of Union, across the street from the theater, all of those apartments are now full. Mr. Questlake just got approvals on the Bola building, so we're going to start seeing movement there. There was another article in the Herald about the Sussex County Community College opening and what's going to be going on there, the addition that they're putting up on campus, and then what's also going on in McGuire. And then, as you mentioned, TAME has come in and have purchased 6 or so properties in the last 6 to 12 months and are just starting to formulate their plans, because for them, they wanted to buy properties and adjoining lots as they were able to negotiate them so that they could do some bigger improvements. So all of that takes
Yeah,
time.
the parking authority looking to purchase property for the first time, and how long to add more parking, and discussions on at least 2 parking garages.
G&H is an active conversation right now. The planning board's busy, and that was part of the reason why 6 months ago or a year ago, the council was very strategic and very much looking for volunteers to be on the planning board, because we knew that the applications are coming up, right? So we were just talking about that tonight, 9 members and 4 alternates or whatever the numbers are. That's now full because every month there's business. The Historic Commission is seeing business. So I think that there are good things coming, and it takes time, but
It takes time. It does.
I think, of course, we'd love to have all the vacancies filled, but it's cyclical as well. Tom, anything else? Okay, we have no executive session tonight, so any other comments from the council? All right, I'll entertain a motion
To adjourn?
at 8:30 PM.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn at 8:30 PM by Deputy Mayor Flynn and a second by Councilman Dixon. All in favor?
Aye.